Today, we're diving deep into one of the most controversial questions in modern society. Is there truly a better economic system than capitalism? We'll examine the facts, explore the alternatives, and see what history really tells us about different ways of organizing society. Buckle up. This video might challenge everything you think you know about economics. The medical analogy. Let me tell you a story that puts everything in perspective. In 1799, George Washington complained of a sore throat. His doctors, the best available back then, treated him by draining 2.5 liters of his blood. He died within 2 days. Today, we know this treatment likely killed him faster than whatever illness he actually had. Economics, just like medicine, is a constantly evolving field. And just like those 18th century doctors who thought they were helping, we might be using economic systems that seem logical but are actually causing more harm than good. The question is, are we still in the bloodletting phase of economic understanding? What are we actually comparing? Before we dive into the debate, let's be clear about what we mean by economic systems. At its core, economics tries to answer 4 fundamental questions. What should be produced? How much? How should it be produced? And who gets it? Capitalism answers these through market mechanisms: supply, demand, and profit incentives. It says, produce what people are willing to pay for, in quantities the market demands, using the most cost-effective methods for those who can afford it. Socialism, on the other hand, proposes democratic planning. Workers control production. The state owns major industries, and resources are allocated based on collective decisions and social need rather than individual purchasing power. But here's where it gets interesting. These aren't just theoretical frameworks. We have real-world data on how they've actually performed. The case for capitalism. Let's be honest about capitalism's achievements. The system has created unprecedented prosperity. The complex supply chains that bring you everything from smartphones to this video itself represent a marvel of economic coordination that spans dozens of countries and millions of workers. Consider this: the mirror in your phone's camera starts as quartz in South America, gets refined in Germany with atomic-level precision, travels to the Netherlands to become part of advanced manufacturing equipment, then to Taiwan for chip production, and finally to China for final assembly. No central planner could coordinate this level of complexity across borders, currencies, and cultures. Capitalism also drives innovation through competition. When companies compete for your money, they improve products, reduce costs, and find new solutions. The profit motive has given us everything from modern medicine to renewable energy technology. And historically, capitalist countries have generally offered higher living standards, more personal freedoms, and greater social mobility than their alternatives. The case against capitalism. But critics point to serious structural problems that seem built into the system itself. First, there's the boom-bust cycle. Every 5 to 7 years, capitalist economies experience major crises that throw millions out of work and destroy businesses. These aren't random accidents. They're predictable results of how the system works. When everyone chases profits in hot sectors, overproduction inevitably leads to crashes. Second, capitalism struggles with what economists call negative externalities: pollution, climate change, and social costs that don't appear on any company's balance sheet. If something isn't profitable to fix, the market often ignores it, even if it threatens everyone's long-term survival. Third, there's the inequality problem. Capitalism tends toward monopolization. Winners keep winning until a few massive corporations dominate entire sectors. Meanwhile, it requires a reserve army of unemployed people to keep wages down and workers compliant. Critics also argue that capitalism isn't as meritocratic as advertised. The Bezoses and Musks of the world typically start with enormous family wealth and connections. For most people, economic mobility is more mythology than reality. Perhaps most fundamentally, capitalism demands infinite growth on a finite planet. At some point, this mathematical impossibility has to hit reality. If you're finding this deep dive into economic systems thought-provoking, hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos that challenge conventional wisdom. The socialist alternative. Socialism's proponents argue their system addresses these problems systematically. Instead of production for profit, you have production for human need. Instead of boom-bust cycles, you have rational economic planning. Instead of environmental destruction, you have sustainable development, because there's no profit motive driving short-term thinking. Interestingly, there's some empirical evidence supporting these claims. A comprehensive study comparing socialist and capitalist countries at similar development levels found that socialist countries consistently had lower infant mortality, higher life expectancy, better education access, and superior nutrition. Basically, better quality of life for ordinary people. Socialist countries also demonstrated they could achieve rapid industrialization. The Soviet Union transformed from a feudal agricultural society to a spacefaring superpower in just decades. China lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty using state-directed development. But here's where the story gets complicated. The reality check. While socialist countries achieved impressive social metrics, they also faced serious problems. Central planning often led to shortages, inefficiencies, and reduced innovation. Political freedoms were frequently restricted. Economic growth, while initially rapid, often stagnated over time. The Soviet Union, despite early successes, ultimately collapsed. Eastern European socialist states were largely abandoned by their own populations when given the choice. Even China has incorporated market mechanisms extensively. Meanwhile, the most prosperous countries today, from Scandinavian social democracies to East Asian developmental states, blend elements of both systems. They use markets for efficiency, but with significant state intervention for social goals. This suggests the reality might be more nuanced than either pure capitalist or socialist models propose. The knowledge problem. Here's perhaps the most important point. Economics is incredibly difficult to study scientifically. You can't run controlled experiments on national economies. Every economic policy happens in a specific historical context that can't be replicated. This means much of what we know about economics might be wrong. Just like those doctors treating George Washington, we might be applying outdated theories that seemed logical at the time, but cause more problems than they solve. Consider that mercantilism, the dominant economic theory before capitalism, made perfect sense to people at the time. Accumulate gold, export more than you import, build national wealth. It took centuries for economists to realize that trade could be mutually beneficial rather than zero-sum. What if we're still in the early stages of understanding how economies actually work? Where do we go from here? The honest answer is, every economic system humans have tried has had serious flaws. Pure capitalism creates inequality and environmental destruction. Historical socialism often led to authoritarianism and stagnation. Mixed economies face their own contradictions and political tensions, but that doesn't mean we should stop trying to improve. Just as medical knowledge continues advancing, economic understanding can evolve too. Maybe the next breakthrough will be as revolutionary as the shift from mercantilism to capitalism, or from feudalism to industrial society. What's clear is that the stakes are enormous. With climate change, technological disruption, and global inequality reaching critical levels, getting economics right isn't just an academic exercise. It's essential for human survival and flourishing. This video was greatly inspired by another video from Economics Explained. I recommend checking that out too. But to answer the original question, is there a better economic system than capitalism? The truth is, we're still figuring it out. What we do know is that the answer will likely be more complex than any single ideology suggests.